The reason why we're taking a little detour is just because things are different today. It's VBS week. I think I was talking to Pastor Chris yesterday and Chris Cavallo, just that, every year I think this needs to be a bigger thing for us. Just celebrating the kids, really learning what they learned, and diving deeper into that, making really our whole church move in the direction that the kids are moving in. And so we're going to be reading in Psalm 25. I'm going to just through verses 1 to 5. In you, Lord, my God, I put my trust. I trust in you. Do not let me be put to shame, nor let my enemies triumph over me. No one who hopes in you will ever be put to shame, but shame will come on those who are treacherous without cause. Show me your ways, Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God, my Savior, and my hope is in you all day long. As we read that text, we're going to be focusing on just verses 4 to 5. But before we jump into verses 4 to 5, I would like to share a little story about my childhood and how it connected with what the kids learned this week. John and Ariana came to Pastor Chris, Laura, and I and said, we really got this great idea. Every idea I threw at them, they turned it down, and they said, we got a better one. And they did have a better one, and it was called Twists and Turns. And really, the title or the subtitle or the theme was Following Jesus Changes the Game. And they made it really fun. They started, as we sat down and brainstormed with them, they started pulling all these games out from my childhood, like our childhood. Because I don't know the games they're playing today. Who knows what, I don't even know what they're playing today. So anyway, they came up with Pac-Man, Monopoly. I think John and Ariana were so creative in some of these places that you could land on. We got Candyland, the Rubik's Cube. It was just great. But the one that I grew up playing most of the time was Tetris, which is right behind me in that cube area right there. And so, I hated the game Tetris, but I also loved it so much. As you got better and better, obviously it's sped up. If you don't know, if you're from, you were born after 2000, but Tetris is what I grew up on and was the main game, and I loved it because it felt like such a challenge, and you had to make decisions very quickly, and they only gave you the one piece for the next move, and so planning was critical. And as you could see, whoever was playing this Tetris game got a little mixed up. I think they made a bad move somewhere. Pastor Chris, as he was playing this Tetris back here, he didn't set it right. He got confused. And he's got the long piece, the 4 square piece, and he's got a perfect move. It's right there along the wall. And then all of a sudden, I know what happened. Something came in and told him, it'd be so much better all the way over here. And he quickly moves that 4 piece, that long one, the linear one, the red one at the top, over to the left-hand side. And he's like, it could work over here. And then all of a sudden, it didn't work so well. So he tries to move it back to the other side quickly, and he didn't have enough time. And he lays it flat, and he misses a whole row. And I don't know if you know the game Tetris, but now he can't capitalize on that row because there's a missing piece. When I think about Tetris, I feel like this is very similar to our life in a way, is we're making decisions along the way. We're constantly trying to wrestle with what decision is the best decision. How do I live in this game called life and make the best decisions for my family, my children, my friends, myself, my church community, and we're sitting here making decisions, and we're going this way, and we're sure, and all of a sudden something changes that and moves us in another direction. So how do you and I not get tied up and miss out on the points of life or the value that we really want to capitalize on in our life? We can look back on some of our stories and probably go, well, that year was a big waste. Or that girlfriend didn't go the way I was hoping. Or I didn't spend that money properly. Or I should have done this rather than this. I know COVID created that in my mind. I came out of COVID and I was like, I'm done with this building business thing. Worst time to stop building. And the market explodes and I missed out on possible opportunity of building houses in the greatest market that we've seen in a while. And so you were constantly wrestling with decisions in life. And really we're trying to find this path that God has laid out for us. This so-called perfect path, right? This idea of, hey, this is the step that I need to take, and this is the step the Lord wants me to take at this time in this place. And I got to tell you, in trying to make those decisions, I've gotten all twisted up in life. I've ran into twists and turns all over the place. And there's been many times that I've made mistake after mistake after mistake, and not only maybe hurt myself, but hurt others in the process. This is really, when I look back on it, a journey of discipleship. Like God trying to teach me these little lessons of life. And trying to move me in the path in which is closest to Him. Where I get to be more like Christ as I'm moving down this path of life. And so that's what I would like to talk about today. How, and this is what we talked about with the kids all week long. How do we live our life with Jesus? How, when we follow Jesus, how could He possibly change the game, the situation that we're in? We talked about following Jesus changes our heart, it changes our thinking, it changes our faith, it changes our direction. Following Jesus will change all of those things. And today we're just going to dive into these few little verses, and really this is the core aspect of discipleship. Because in the first 3 verses, when we see and we look at this, what we really see is David declaring, in you, Lord my God, I put my trust. David right here is experiencing what I would like to think this moment of salvation, where he is trusting fully in Jesus and saying, Jesus, I'm going to follow you. Like, you're my Lord. You're my Savior. And I mean, he's not directing it towards Jesus himself. Jesus hasn't come on the scene yet in his life. But in God Almighty, Yahweh, he is saying, I trust in you. Salvation has come to David at this moment. And as David is offering his soul to God, he is simply saying, God, disciple me. God, teach me, show me, lead me in your ways. And so that's what I would like to talk about with us today, is just really how is it that you and I should be discipled, or what is discipleship? So let me just give us a simple definition, the one I think about for discipleship all the time. Discipleship is simply this: moving from unbelief to belief through the gospel. Moving from unbelief to belief through the gospel. You could add on through Christ, through however which way, but you and I are being discipled in many things in life. We're constantly moving from a place of maybe rebellion, turning from, I don't agree with, I don't hold that same theology, I don't hold those same beliefs, I don't want to go in that direction, and now all of a sudden we're turning from something and we're turning to something. Discipleship is not a one encounter, one and done type of moment in our lives. It's a constant walk that you and I are on. That's why creating a Discipleship 101 class or a pathway to your discipleship is ridiculous in my mind. It's a great tool to teach you what it is, but it's not going to teach you how to live your life. This is a wrestling match that you and I are going through every single day, of how do we constantly move from unbelief in something to belief in something else. And the big question is, who are we being discipled by? Now, in our kids, we could obviously see there are tons of people on YouTube all the time, or or on TV shows that are trying to teach our children. My daughter Scarlett is in love with this thing called slime. I despise it, okay? And she is constantly playing with it. It's like, it's constantly, she's watching slime video after slime video, and I'm frustrated at times by it because she's being discipled by these kids in this area. She once didn't believe in slime, now she believes in slime, and I'm not proud of that as a dad. I got to be honest with you, that I slipped up in this area. But when we think about it, even the shows that we're allowing our kids to watch are teaching them something. They're moving from not believing to believing. What you and I listen to or trust in, whatever we read, whatever show we're watching, whatever advice or counsel we're getting from people, we must be careful and aware of the counsel that we are getting. Is this biblical counsel? Do I have proper authority over my life so that I am moving as they're bringing me to a place of unbelief to belief? Are they doing it in Christ through the gospel? Is everything being filtered through those lenses? So I want to dive a little deeper into what we're going to look at of what true transformational discipleship really looks like. Is it simply looks like these three things. Engaging our whole being. In order to be discipled, you must engage every part of your body. We must engage our mind, our heart, our emotions, our soul, our spirit, our physical being. We must be engaged in our whole being in order to experience true transformational discipleship. We also must be equipping ourselves for action. Like you must continually look to what can I learn so that I could apply? What can I do with this? What can I learn? What am I equipping myself so that I can apply this in my life going forward? And 3 is empowering us to be led by Jesus, to be led by Him. That is so hard in our culture today because many times it's so easy, it's so much more comfortable for someone to just tell us what to do, and then we go and do it. And then when it doesn't work out, we get to blame them. To be led by Jesus is empowering. And so we're going to look at those 3 things, how David pulls these out in just these few verses as we go through Psalm 25. Show me your ways, Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God, my Savior, and my hope is in you all day long. As we engage, or as God is now, as we engage God in our whole being, we must be aware of what God is showing us. David says, show me your ways, Lord. You know, I love watching TV shows, okay? I do. I really like TV shows. They're like mindless activities that I don't have to think about anything, and I get to engage in some stupid drama and get lost in it, and then I binge watch it too late at night, and I just want to go back to the story later at night. I'm looking for the end of the story in it. This mindless activity that I do at times. I love watching a good movie. Okay, I'm sure we all do at times. Just sitting down, again, engaging in something that I get to be the spectator of. I'm relaxing. I'm getting the popcorn. I'm getting the soda. I'm getting the box candy from Walgreens. And here I am, sitting on my couch, vegging out, goring myself with all these wonderful, delicious foods, and then just watching a movie, a good movie. I love even going to Broadway to watch a show. I love seeing actors and actresses sing and dance, and the lights and all the elements that are put into the show. I don't have to do anything. I get to go and just be and watch and applaud and be the spectator. But then after I'm done usually doing one of those 3 activities, I'm like, that was a stinking waste of time. I'm angry at myself. I'm frustrated. I'm like, I can't believe I just wasted 30, 45, an hour and a half, or Broadway, whatever play you go to, 3 hours. The shows that I love, the things that show me, the ones that really I engage in more, are those things that have some emotional connection to. that at the end of it, I'm left wanting to do something. What David is saying here in the psalm, he's not saying, God, just show me something. Let me be the spectator of it. No, he's saying, make known to me so I can engage with my whole being in this. When he's actually saying this word, show, it literally means make known, yada. It's a revelation, a holy, divine revelation, an infinite revelation that comes from God. We see this in Isaiah. My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts than your thoughts. Sometimes we ask God, God, show me the path. Just because we don't want to step in the wrong direction. But we don't realize what we're actually engaging is a holy God that is wanting to divinely have a divine encounter with you and reveal to you something so holy and so perfect that is in line with His will. Moses says this, if I have found grace in your sight, show me your way, that I might know you. Moses is not saying, God, show me so that I can not make the bad step, but I want to see you in this step. I want to experience you in this moment that I'm about to take. Show me, Lord, that I can have all of Jesus in this moment. God's ways are revealed through His law, but they only could be received, and what I mean by law, we could even see maybe through His Word. But you and I could ask God to show us all we want, but if you and I are not able to engage through repentance, forgiveness, through God's Spirit, and the beautiful gift of salvation, we're never going to really see and be moved by what God shows us. I want to read to you a psalm. Me and Pastor Chris just about read this psalm every Sunday morning now. And it's Psalm 51. I'm just going to pull out 3 verses for us. It says, create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. David here is asking God to engage him fully because of the sin that he found himself and the path that he desires to take. He is asking God to create in him something pure. So this isn't just about like knowing the step, but engaging the step, again, like I said earlier, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, however you want to put that, okay? We need to understand that in this next step, this path that God desires to take is simply so that we can experience Him. I want to tell you the number one way that we get tripped up, and I constantly say it in this church because you know what? I just feel like we need to say it again and again and again because we're not going to get it if we don't. We'll simply forget. You got to engage God in one of those, what we call a kairos moment or a God moment. Most of you and me just simply listen to God. We hear Him saying something, but we don't process what it is that we need to do about that. He shows it to us. He says, this is not it. This is the way. And we see it, and then we look for the recalculating, the rerouting of the GPS. Like, reroute, please, Lord, give me the other route. And then we'll go to everyone else in our life to find the new route. But God has shown us His way, and He's asking us to engage Him fully in that moment. And what we love to do, and I'm just going to turn this way so we can see, as we're going along this journey, this path of life, and we start to take this downward spiral, this downward circular side, and we go down this what I call the unbelief side or the repentance side, the turning from the rebellion side of this Kairos moment. This is going to be a darker moment in our lives where you and I are going to do some deep self-reflection. And what we all love to do in that moment is go, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do with that. Pastor, what do I do in this moment? Friend, what should I do in this moment? We start researching information online of what we should do. The path is real simple. Continue down the path of repentance and forgiveness and engaging God's Spirit and really asking Him, Lord, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And then do it. But you're never going to be able to really allow God, when He shows you the path, to take that step if we're not engaging fully and we're just doing some mindless activity with the Lord as we're asking Him to show us. When we ask God to show us His path, we must fully engage in this moment. Fully engage. So as David asked the Lord to show me your path, O Lord, show me your path, he then says, show me your ways, Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me in your truth and teach me. We must understand that really what we have to do in this step of teaching is equipping ourselves for action. Teaching I'm a teacher, I'm a school teacher at Manchester Township High School, and I really have come to love teaching. I really enjoy it. And there's some terminology or taxonomies of skills or structures or frameworks that we should teach one another, or that we should teach our students with in the profession. And one of them is called, I'm giving you a little lesson on education. I don't know why, forgive me. But I feel like it's a good illustration for us. It's called Bloom's taxonomy. And the process of Bloom's taxonomy is shaped usually in a pyramid, but there's a 6-step process to it. I know some of my teachers out there know what this is. But the first step is called remembering. The second step is understanding. So the first thing you must do with a student is help them remember something. Then you got to help them understand it, then apply it, then analyze it, evaluate it, and then actually create it themselves. And that's a journey to bring a student along in that process. And very rarely does it ever happen, and we hope that it happens, but it doesn't. But now, recently I've been coaching football, and I've seen this actually lived out on the football field. I've been coaching this past week. It's a little part-time job I picked up. And the kids, it's really fun. Day one, we draw it up on the chalkboard. We draw the play. Okay? We're helping them remember something. And then next step, we want them to understand it. So we do a little walkthrough with it. We have, hey, let's do it on air, guys. Okay, we're just going to walk through where we need to go. And the second one is we want them to apply it. So now we're going to put people or cones or bags there so that we all know where to do, where to put our head, where to put our feet, and things like that. This process has to happen in educating or in this teaching process, or else people are never really going to ever get taught. They're never really going to ever learn. It's kind of like this. My wife helped me out with this one. It's kind of like a doctor who sits in school, gets all the textbook information. He doesn't run right into the surgery room after that. There's a process of really understanding what the textbook says, going through a season of apprenticeship. And so you never wanted the doctor who just came out of the classroom to be operating on you. Amen? And so we all want to make sure that that person has their credentials, has the history. I don't know about you, but I want someone who's been in the business for a longer time working on me before someone who just came out of the classroom yesterday. And so now here it is. We have to do this as Christians, and the sad thing is, by just doing this on Sunday, sometimes preaching at you, it's detrimental to your growth. It's detrimental to you. All we're sometimes doing is lecturing you, and many of us don't even process what it is that we have learned. We don't take it out to the game of life and actually start to try to understand this, or apply it, or then analyze it. or then even actually disciple people in this process. Many times we love to learn, but we never love to apply. This application, what David is asking here is, Lord, equip me so I can go and do. There must be an equipping piece that comes with your discipleship plan, your discipleship journey, so that you could be transformational in it. Or you will sit in these chairs for 10 to 20, 30, 40 years, and you'll never see any difference. You'll never see you overcoming those addictions, those lusts, those fears, those pains, those trials. You'll never learn to rise above the moment of what is happening around us. We're going to constantly just say, I don't know why this isn't working for me. I don't know why I'm not getting this. I don't know why I can't apply this in my life. We learned about a great story called The Woman at the Well this week. And this woman, as she was waiting for her Messiah to come, was introduced to her Messiah. Soon as when she heard about her Messiah and the love that he had for her, she went and did something about it. Transformation happened right away. She went and told all her friends. She couldn't hold it back, and as a result, those people were transformed too. A simple thing that you and I can ask ourselves is, if Jesus is really truly transforming us, are people around us being transformed by the gospel? Or are we just gathering up this bunch of head knowledge and it never drops from our head to our heart and from our heart to our hands, so we actually go out and do something about it? David here is not saying, Lord, teach me so I can be the most knowledgeable person in the room and raise my hand for every Bible question. He's saying, Lord, equip me. Prepare me for the battlefield, because the battlefield is real. We must engage God with our whole being. We must be equipped for action. That's why you're here on Sunday. We're equipped here so that you could take it and digest it and really mull it around. And this is my hope and prayer for our church, that we would embrace this thing that we're trying to engage in more and more as a church, these things called community groups, where you take what you heard here on Sunday and go, how do I live this out now, community group? Help me put this into action. I've been told on Sunday I need to now be equipped for action in my life. Help me do this. Where can I put this teaching into practice? And we're missing a critical component if we're not taking this message. I don't even care, it's my message. It could be anybody else's message. Turn on John MacArthur if you don't listen like my messages. Put on another preacher if you want to listen to him. I don't care. Any message, if you don't take it and put it into action, it's worthless. It's worthless. It's worthless. We must engage God fully with our whole being. We must also be equipped for action. Lastly, we must be led. We must be led. David here is asking God to lead him. And we must be led by empowering us to be led by Jesus. You, church, are called to be empowered men and women of God. Empowered men and women of God for great influence in our world. David prays this. He says, lead me in your truth and teach me. David is simply asking God, march me down that way. Show me the way. I'm going to follow. I'm going. I'm doing it. I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to trust. Would like to read us a scripture from James 1:22 of what real obedience to the word looks like. It says, do not merely listen to the word, so deceive yourselves. It's great. You come in and listen to the word. But you actually got to do it. It says, do what it says. You know, I read a statistic this past week, and then it said most Americans, this is now just think about this number for a second, and think about how many people are most likely to proclaim that they're Christian, okay? When it comes to where Americans place their trust as they gather information about making important decisions in their life, a big majority, 81%, rely on their own research. So what's this saying? This is saying that usually 81% of us in this room right here, okay, 8 out of 10 people will usually, before they trust God, they will trust the research they do online. We'll double check on social media what the thread is saying. We'll check with some author before actually we are being led by God. So we're called to be people that are truly led by Jesus. But too many times we're Googling things and we're listening to the counsel of others and not being empowered by the Spirit of God. We rely more on friends and family's decision, 43% that said that, and 31%, believe it or not, said professional experts. David is responding and saying, Lord, I am willing for you to lead me. I want you to lead me. I desire you to lead me. I desire to be empowered by you to move. The thing that moves me into that next step is simply you. He says, for you are the God of my salvation. David recognizes that God has saved him and he redeemed him, and I'm trusting him for this place one day called eternity, called heaven. And I'm not only trusting him for it now, but I'm trusting it forever. The sad truth is, many of us will trust Jesus for eternity, but we won't trust him with our next step. We don't even trust him to say, if Lord's saying, hey, this is what the step that I need you to take in your life, and he's been directing, giving road signs, whatever you want to call it. He's leading you through his word. This has been something impressing upon your heart. He's closing doors, opening other ones. And all of a sudden, we're still wrestling with this decision, and we're not trusting God, but we're willing to trust him with our salvation. It just doesn't make sense. David is saying, and I'm saying this, I'm agreeing with David here. If we're willing to trust God with where we end up when we die, can't we just trust him for our next step in life? And just slow down and just trust him with that next step. Now, this is really great in pie in the sky of saying it to you on a Sunday, but it's sometimes really hard to live out, isn't it? Like all of a sudden the step comes and I'm engaging it emotionally, intellectually, I'm engaging it spiritually. Lord, I see the step. Lord, I know your ways. I'm learning the word. I know how to take that step. But just to take it, it's really hard. You know, we learned this past week about Paul and Ananias in Acts chapter 9 with the kids. And I love the way we did it this week. It was really simple and it was exciting. And by the way, we got some Academy Award winners in here, I got to tell you. We did some skits for the kids and they loved it. And so Kevin in the back, I think he takes the Academy. And so, we did on the last day, we talked about following Jesus for direction. That Jesus, he gives me our direction. He changes my direction. Ananias didn't like Paul, who once was Saul. The reason why is Saul was going around murdering people, actually locking Christians up in jail. And Ananias was a Christian. He was a follower of Jesus. And God told him that, hey, Ananias, you have to go and speak to this guy named Saul of Tarsus and tell him about the gospel and pray for him. And you need to love on this man and heal this man. He can't see. Ananias is like, Lord, are you sure? Do you know who he is? Do you realize what he's done? At the same time, God is speaking to Saul, now Paul, and telling him a man named Ananias is going to come and pray for him, and that he must be baptized. This beautiful connection, divine, providential God that we worship and serve, aligned these two men to come, but it required something. It required simply one thing: them to be empowered by Jesus and just simply take a step of obedience. You got to take the step. Ananias he goes to see Saul of Tarsus, specifically at a location. Saul of Tarsus is there. He prays for him. Scales fall from Saul's eyes. He's baptized. And guess what happens to Saul? He writes most of our New Testament that we read here today. Transforms the world for all the Gentiles and the Jews. That you and I now get to worship the King of Kings. Would God would have used someone else if they disobeyed? Of course he would. But Ananias got to be part of the story. He got to be part of God's story just simply because he obeyed and was empowered and led by God. A practical way that you and I could think about this is, or posture ourselves before the Lord, and this is a really helpful illustration for me, whenever I'm saying, Lord, am I being led by you? Am I surrendering or submitting to your leadership? It's an acronym called FAT. It's easy to remember. It's faithful, available, and teachable. Am I being faithful, available, and teachable to the Lord? Am I being faithful to Him by saying, Lord, it is you alone and you who are the one that leads me? Rebellion in our life is a really great sign of a lack of faithfulness to God. If I went out and cheated on my wife tomorrow, this would be horrendous to our relationship, to our family, and the rest of my life. But in a way, how much God has done for us, it's like we're saying, I love you, Lord, but I'm going to go cheat on you right now and come back to you because you're so loving and forgiving. Like, what if we really were faithful to the Lord and we stopped rebelling, or we recognized those places of rebellion and we really submitted to Him fully and we're led by the Spirit and faithful to Him and Him alone? Are you available to Him? Simply, Ananias was available. Saul, who became Paul, became available to the Lord. Lord, use me. David even says simply this, on you I wait. And so, for me and you today, how is it that you and I can become available to the Lord? Well, we can hit the big old pause button and slow down. And before we race off to a decision that Dr. Phil said, or some other doctor online said, or this professional said, or what we researched on Google, slow down, engage the Lord. Lord, what will you have me do in this moment? Something that a lot of our leaders are learning right now is to learn how to pause and just remain in loving union with God and be led by Him. Teachable. We must be teachable. If you are not willing to be corrected or redirected, we are not a teachable people, and we cannot be led by God. God will very often teach us the area that we did wrong, and guess who He's going to use it? People here, right here in our community. And then all of a sudden we don't like somebody now, and we get mad at them because they told us the truth. God wants to use people to teach us, to redirect us. Submitting to the Lord is really easy from our chair on Sunday, but it gets really hard on Monday through Saturday. I'll wrap this up for us because I got a lot more notes. And I'm sweating. You and I have a choice every single day to be led by God, but really to simply engage Him fully with everything that we have. To be willing to be equipped for action, but also to be led by our next step. Too many times we are people that are reacting emotionally to things. We're reacting in a way, the ways of the past, and not leaning into the present of what God might be trying to do in us or through others, or we might be acting in fear. Jesus truly does change the game. He changes the game for us. But it only comes when we truly embrace transformational discipleship. Show me, Lord. Teach me. Show me, Lord. Teach me. Lead me in your ways. Lead me in your paths so that I might do your will and not mine. Pastor Chris is gonna come up, and we have a few offering messages because I messed up on the service order later. I apologize. But Tom, you're gonna come up too. Come on up here, Tom. Pastor Chris is gonna